In Ecuador, the President Guillermo Lasso declared a 60-day state of emergency and the mobilization of the armed forces throughout the national territory following the murder of the presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio. In Argentina, the governor of the province of Buenos Aires, Axel Kicillof, announced the suspension of the campaign closing events and expressed his solidarity with the relatives of a girl assaulted and murdered in the capital city. And at least 36 people died as wildfires ravaged Hawaii after winds from Hurricane Dora and South whipped the flames across the island, destroying buildings and cars as residents scrambled to flee. Hello, from the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. In Ecuador, the President Guillermo Lasso declared on Wednesday night a 60-day state of emergency and the deployment of the armed forces throughout the national territory following the assassination of the presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio. After concluding the emergency meeting of the Security Cabinet, the head of state decreed late on Wednesday the measure that affects the entire national territory. Additionally, announced the deployment of military contingents and decreed a 3-day mourning period to honor the memory of the assassinated candidate. In the same speech, the president of the National Electoral Council, Diana Atamint, assured that the elections will not be suspended due to these events.
At this moment, given the gravity of the events that have shocked Ecuador, I will proceed to sign 2 decrees. The first one declaring 3 days of national mourning to honor the memory of patriot Fernando Villavicencio Valencia, and the second decree declaring a state of emergency for 60 days. The armed forces will mobilize throughout the national territory to ensure the safety of citizens, the security of the country, and the free and democratic elections on August 20th.
The president of the National Electoral Council, Diana Atamint, also attended the emergency meeting, ratified that the early general elections scheduled for August 20th will not be suspended.
Ecuadorians, good evening. As an electoral function and as a part of the Ecuadorian states, we repudiate and condemn this criminal act and express our condolences to family, friends, and the political movement. We also communicate that the dates of election scheduled for August 20 remain unalterable in compliance with the constitutional and legal mandate, as well as all the activities planned in the electoral calendar, approved by the plenary of the National Electoral Council.
And precisely with little more than 2 weeks to go to early general elections, Ecuador sees a new wave of violence that this time hits the political figures the hardest. To go on the topic, we invite Fernando Casado, who is a political analyst and professor of the Technical University of Manabí. Be welcome, Fernando.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. So the assassination of the presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio adds another grim episode to the recent string of violent events and to the turbulent political situation in the country that have been unstable for months. So why target Villavicencio and why now?
There are many speculations about why he has been actually murdered. The reality is that there is no precedent in Ecuador of this political violence. A few weeks ago, a mayor of one of the main cities was murdered. Also during the elections in February, several candidates were as well murdered. This is something completely new in the political arena in Ecuador, and it reminds the worst times of few countries in Latin America. The levels of insecurity have really reached levels that we have never seen before. Why he was murdered? He has been actually denouncing several times and publicly different narco-traffickants here in Ecuador. So one of the reasons could be, and one of the hypotheses is actually that these narco groups, criminal gangs, would have been the responsible of the assassination. But the truth is that many fails happened as well yesterday in his security internment. He had no the right car to transport him from the activity he was celebrating. The security that surrounded him did not do the proper protocols. So many speculations.
We are confronting technical issues in this interview and in this moment that we were talking and dialoguing with Fernando Casado, who is a professor of the Technical University of Manabí and who is in Quito, the capital of Ecuador, and he was also giving us his opinions and criteria regarding this latest string of violent events in Ecuador and also these events ahead of the general elections. Also, we have other informations because the assassination of Ecuadorian presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio has raised concerns after one of the alleged perpetrators died inside the premises of the public prosecutor's office. The candidate's relatives, after the attack, pointed out serious flaws in his security. Later, coalition colleagues and political analysts questioned the entire police handling of the investigation. The candidate was shot inside a patrol car, and sources close to him claim that no one cleared the exit. So far, the police confirmed 6 detainees, but the main suspect of the crime, who was arrested wounded at the scene, was not taken to a hospital, but to a security local office under the administration of prosecutor's office, where he died after he sustained the severe injuries. And in the same topic, Galo Valencia, the uncle of the Ecuadorian presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio, questioned police absence and the lack of security in the place where the assassination occurred.
This murder, we don't understand where the police were, where the police protection was, knowing that Fernando had a 96% danger of threats, and even more in the last few days. He was threatened by this criminal group. I don't understand where the police were to protect the life of Fernando and of those of us who were there.
As part of the string of violent crimes that shook Ecuador, the bomb squad found an explosive device in the same place where Fernando Villavicencio was assassinated. The package with explosives may have been thrown by the hitmen after the attack. Afterwards, the officers carried out a controlled detonation in a secured sector of the area, a few meters from the clinic where Villavicencio was killed. The wave of violence that is shaking the country worsened alarmingly this Wednesday when even the headquarters of his party, Movimiento Coalición, was vandalized. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find the news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Argentina, the governor of the province of Buenos Aires, Axel Kicillof, announced the suspension of the campaign closing events and expressed his solidarity with relatives of a girl assaulted and murdered in the capital city. Candidates from several political groups and movements in Argentina decided to suspend their campaign events on Wednesday ahead of the primary elections due to the murder of 11-year-old Morena Dominguez, who was attacked as she was about to enter her school. Among the candidates of the Peronist alliance Unión por la Patria, who decided to pause their campaign events, are the Minister of Economy and the presidential pre-candidate Sergio Massa, as well as the governor of the province of Buenos Aires, Axel Kicillof, who is seeking the re-election. It was stated that those responsible for the murder are being sought by the provincial police. The Colombian government announced that it launched the necessary inquiries into an accusation made by the Attorney General Francisco Barbosa for an alleged attempt on his life. Defense Minister Iván Velázquez said they will look into the accusation made by the Attorney General of an alleged meeting of the National Liberation Army in Venezuela to plot against his life. Meanwhile, the Venezuelan government has rejected this latest attempt to hinder peace in Colombia and was demanded an investigation into the accusations made by the Colombian Attorney General about Venezuelan territory being used for terrorist purposes. On its part, the National Liberation Army denounced the attempts to sabotage the peace talks with the Colombian government.
With regards to the information made public yesterday about a possible attempt against the Attorney General, we have evaluated the information that we have with him and with Deputy Attorney General Marta Mancera. Initially, we naturally expressed our solidarity, the support of the national government, and we state the government's willingness to provide the necessary protection to the Attorney General.
We move on to other topics. At least 36 people died as wildfires ravaged Hawaii after winds from Hurricane Dora in South Maui whipped the flames across the island, destroying buildings and cars as residents scrambled to flee. Wildfires, fanned by the strong winds from Hurricane Dora passing far to the south, took the island of Maui by surprise, reducing the cars, premises, and historical buildings to rubble and ashes. Flames ravaged throughout the night, forcing people to dive into the ocean for safety. Officials said earlier that 271 structures were damaged or destroyed and dozens of people injured. U.S. President Joe Biden said he ordered all available federal assets to help with the response and that Hawaii National Guard had mobilized Chinook helicopters to help with the fire suppression as well as search and rescue efforts on Maui.
Saw tourists, you saw tourist buses coming in. These folks are flying in from Maui as you speak, and just to stand up something like this in such a short amount of time, it took all these individuals' efforts. We wanted to describe some of these efforts and events that happened. The other thing is I had an opportunity to fly with the Coast Guard this afternoon to see the devastating impacts firsthand. Just to fly over Kihei and continue to see the burning flames and see firsthand the impact on Lahaina, and Lahaina town was just so shocking and devastating. It looked as if it's just the whole town was devastated, the whole town was decimated.
And Lahaina residents also offered testimonies regarding the sinister.
The apartment complex is right above the aquatic center, so we thought we were okay, but then the wind came, the gas stations blew up, everything caught fire by the brush, and then we just had to evacuate.
And we have a second short break coming up. But before, we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. And there you will be able to rewatch our interviews, the top stories, the special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. We have a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Russia, the armed forces shot down 2 drones headed for the capital, adding another foiled attack from Ukraine. The Russian Defense Ministry reported on Thursday that anti-aircraft defenses shot down unmanned drones in the Kaluga province. Sebastopol and the Black Sea were also targeted by Ukrainian attacks. Russian forces shot down 2 drones in the former, and new ones were neutralized by electronic warfare equipment in the vicinity of the Black Sea, where they finally crashed. In none of the cases, the attacks left casualties nor material damages. And Beijing announces necessary countermeasures after Washington imposed new restrictions on U.S. companies' investments in advanced technologies in China. The Chinese Foreign Ministry described the restrictions as example of economic coercion and technological bullying. The statements follow the signing of an executive order by the President Joe Biden banning the U.S. companies from investing in the areas of semiconductors, quantum computing, and artificial intelligence. Beijing strongly condemned the latest moves by the United States to limit U.S. investment in some Chinese technology companies. On Thursday, the Israeli occupation army killed another Palestinian in Nablus, northern West Bank. The health ministry confirmed the death of 27-year-old Amir Khalifa, who was shot in the head after Israeli troops carried out a new operation in the area, considered by the Tel Aviv government to be a stronghold of the Palestinian resistance. Also on Thursday, according to Wafa, 3 Palestinian youths were injured in the occupied city of Jerusalem following an assault by Israeli settlers in a public park. With the assassination of Amir Khalifa, the number of Palestinian citizens killed so far in 2023 is up to 168, and 39 of them were minors. On Thursday, the leaders of the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland in Niger have appointed the new transitional government, inaugurating 21 ministers and Ali Lamine Zain as the prime minister. The decree was signed by General Abdurrahman Tishani, who is at the head of the council after the military coup. The text states the executive is made up of civilian and military figures. In fact, Lamine Zain was Minister of Economy in a previous government and has no military ties. The decree of this transitional government coincides with the meeting of the leaders of the Economic Community of East African States, ECOWAS, in Nigeria.
The President of the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, Head of State and Head of Government, today signed a decree appointing the members of the government. The decree appoints the following: Prime Minister, Minister of the Economy and Finance, Mr. Lamine Zain Ali Mahamaneh, Minister of State, Minister of National Defense, General Salifu Modi, Minister of State, Minister of the Interior, Public Security and Territorial Administration, General Mohamed Tumba.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Next, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.